This all came about because of a review of the ordinance and whether or not it provided with the owners of properties notice that their property is being considered for either designation of a historic landmark or for some other designation by the Historic Preservation Society. And so with the help of Mr. Kazira of the Planning Board and Mr. McGovern from the Board of Adjustment, we made some changes which are highlighted. Actually, no, this is the final version. I had sent you all the red line version in the past that provided some notice requirements regarding when decisions might be made regarding the properties. Ultimately, the Planning Board has to make a final determination after public notice. In other words, having a public hearing, at which point, there could be an objection stated if that was so. So we just kind of, that was the only thing we really added. We cleaned it up a little bit. It had not been amended for quite a long time, so that's what we did. And then, obviously, I know the commissioners had some questions about the ordinance and how it operates, and I suggested that we bring the group in and let them explain, since they actually operate under it, so.
So I think maybe, I don't know who would be best to do this, I don't know, John, but maybe just a little semi-history of the ordinance, because I know there's some questions that came up as far as, for lack of a better word, forcing somebody into this. So, so you guys want to just give a little history of the ordinance going back, I don't know, 6 years, 7 years?
As the newest member and certainly not a part of the board when the bank application happened, I'd ask John, who was certainly there through the whole thing, to provide the history.
So do we want to speak specifically of that?
No,
or just
the whole ordinance itself, and then you can go through the specifics on the bank and what led to some of the changes.
Yeah, I think it, for a while it was noticed that the historic preservation ordinance aspect should be put into the master plan. So there was, I think the earliest set of it was there was a ad hoc group put together to investigate whether this was something that would be beneficial for the town. And with many groups afterwards and many years put into it, we worked on what we thought was a fairly good basic ordinance. And obviously, through trial and error, we found out that we were lacking some key features in the first set. So we all got together again and we reviewed what your changes are, and most of them we're in agreement with. And we feel that we never wanted this to be something that was enforced upon someone. This was always a, you come to us kind of thing, where we wanted people to be part of it, to recommend or to come to the committee and say, how do I get put on this list of properties? So I'm not sure where, I know there were some major concerns about the ordinance sort of strong-arming people or locking them into something that they didn't want to do. And I really don't feel it reads that way. I'm not sure what your concerns were with it. I see how, based on the Bank of Nutley scenario, I see how we were lacking in some of the communication, some of the mechanics of how this goes through. But I really never saw this as an ordinance that was going to be prohibitive or strong-arm anyone into doing anything that they didn't want to do with their property.
Does it say anywhere in here that it's voluntary?
No, and it
Well,
doesn't
it
say
gives
it
us
the
I guess
other way
it gives
either.
us the
No, I
power
understand
to
that.
designate
I
if
understand
we
it's
want.
silent both ways.
Yeah.
All right, but I think it's important.
Okay.
I mean, I agree with the intent of this ordinance. All right, I think it is important to preserve these buildings. All right, but I think it's important not to be silent on it and to spell it out as best we can.
Understood. That's why I think the new procedures that we want to put in place, that some of them which you've recommended, make it absolutely clear to everyone, homeowner, the committee, the building department, everyone understands where this is going. This isn't something that we're trying to slide in on the side here. So I think the communication is the key.
That was never the way it
Okay.
was interpreted. You guys were gonna slide one by us. That was never, all right, just that it wasn't clear whether it was voluntary or whether it was mandatory.
Well, it is a bit of both, right? I'm gonna say I could see the next 20 years that we could fill the coffers with homes that come to us voluntarily.
Our first three homes are with that, that are interested. People came to us,
I think that's wonderful.
so that's good. It's-
But I could foresee in the future that there is either a commercial building or a home that is so important, and there is an owner who may not be absolutely willing, that an ordinance is that, isn't it? Isn't an ordinance something that does require someone to do something as opposed to being totally voluntary?
It's a law. It's a local law.
Yeah. So again, while I think that there needs to be some teeth in this ordinance, I almost can't foresee for the next 10 to 20 years that we would have buildings that would be problematic. And I know that doesn't answer a legal question down the road when we come up to one. I think maybe one of the things that got us a bit off track in the beginning was going with what did seem like a slam dunk, but a commercial building is of course a little bit trickier than someone's private home. And certainly the next line of buildings that we've got, and a good dozen of them are all going to fall into that private home category where the owners are thrilled to be a part of it and are willing, when they're a part of that, to take on the responsibility of when they sell their home, that this isn't an ordinance for the owner necessarily, that could be undone by the next owner of the building. It's something that is for the building itself. And again, if an owner decides
So
that.
how do you plan on doing that? Through a deed restriction?
Well, the home is, so let's say I put my home on the historic preservation list. So that home is there, no matter who owns that, or that it's on that list no matter who owns it. So if you purchased the house from me, you would be under the same requirements of the ordinance that I was when I put the house on it. I don't know, does that answer the question?
Not much like the
I just want
variance.
to follow up on something. I'm a little concerned about something. I'm gonna ask
Just
you.
know, let me know one thing, this is the current ordinance. The one with our changes is not this one.
Okay.
So those changes really dealt with notice requirements, not the substance of this. You can still use this as your guide.
Here's my concern, and I'll defer to council. I'm concerned that, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. What I'm hearing is that whether it be commercial or private or proper homeowner, that if it is in the opinion of, for lack of a better term, the government, the governing body,
The committee.
the committee, okay?
Not the governing body.
Well, but if it's an ordinance, doesn't it, that becomes a governing body,
Right, but the ordinance is carried out by the committee.
Okay, I'm concerned about, and I know it's not government, for lack of a better illustration, government overreach here. It seems like we're seizing property from people against their will. You made a point to say that, well, you want some teeth into this, and if there's a commercial property that we deem should be of historical significance, getting to your point, how do you enforce taking someone's property? And Counselor, I'm referring to you because I see that as a real problem 20 years down the road from now.
Well, I think that.
I don't
the word
understand the seizing their property.
Well, let me clear that. I don't think the word taking is probably appropriate. I think what you're saying is limiting or restricting someone's
Okay.
property. So, again, the new ordinance that you don't have in front of you with changes provides that the planning board will have a public hearing, and the owner of the property will have notice to come and object to any application or recommendation by the committee, the historic committee, to deem the property a landmark. The question is, and it's not always clear in the ordinance, what happens at the planning board level other than having a public hearing? Will the planning board override an owner's desire not to deem it historic, a landmark? We've never been there, right? We haven't been on that. I don't think you guys have
Right.
been to that point.
No.
So
Well,
I can't answer it 100% because we haven't had any experience
For
with
instance,
that.
but
But it's a
here's,
permanent restriction of the designation of the property.
but there's my issue with it, okay? Is that you have someone who owns property, okay? And all of a sudden, they're gonna be told, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just, trying to work through this myself, that your property is of historical significance, so we're gonna determine that. Now, council's saying there's gonna be a hearing, all right? And somewhere along the line, somebody's gonna make a decision over a property owner. I have a problem with that.
Well, that's the gist of the
Having
ordinance.
an historic ordinance
Right.
that says
Now-
that you guys approved originally.
Right, well,
Yeah.
maybe Sal can address
Go ahead,
this,
Sal.
Sal, but Sal,